After the appointment of David Moyes back to Everton and the 3 games he's had in charge, his Everton side sits 7 points above the drop, with the opportunity to extend that growing gap with a win on Saturday at home to Leicester. The last 2 games have been exceptional. They humiliated Tottenham and limited Brighton to just 1 shot on target and 0 big chances in their 1-0 victory. In this video, I'll be taking a look at what was going wrong pre-David Moyes, what's changed Everton's tactics on and off the ball, their performances against Spurs and Brighton, and where I see them finishing at the end of the season. Let's go. Firstly, let's disclose why Sean Dyche was sacked. There's lots out there that believe and push the narrative that Everton's squad is poor, and how can you sack Dyche in a relegation fight? Dyche did the job of keeping the Toffees up very well. He solidified them, he did what was asked of him, but since then he's not really done much more. There's no progression. Since Dyche was appointed, his team has scored the fewest goals in the Premier League, and closest to them in that department are 24 goals away. In his last 10 games as Everton boss, his side scored just 1 goal from open play. They had 3 wins from 19, 8 wins in the last 40, whilst being the second lowest scorers with the worst XG in the entire league. The football was horrific, stale, dire, negative. There was 0 attacking combinations or any intention of them. There was no plan. All their plan consisted of was passing it round, then letting Tarkowski or Pickford lump it long. Dyche's team had no idea how to play and controlling games where they were expected to win, and were only useful when facing big teams where they could put 10 men behind the ball. Rumours suggest he lost the trust and faith of his players, and who can blame them? Players won't enjoy their football when the only team playing the football is the other team. So Moyes came in, a man with a very good reputation for taking West Ham from relegation fighting regulars to European champions. And the Scotsman has steered them away from a relegation battle, but Moyes has applied more control and attacking threat whilst maintaining their defensive solidity. Everything Evertonians would have wanted. On paper, when you look at Everton's lineup, it's a standard 4-2-3. You'd assume nothing too elaborate and different compared to Dyche. Well, that's where you'd be wrong. Moyes has introduced Jake O'Brien into the side, a 15 million centre-back signing this season from Lyon in France, and he plays at right back. In this system, O'Brien tucks into right centre-back with Tarkowski and Branthwaite as a back 3, with Mykolenko pushing up, which moves Ndiaye into that left half space as a 10, with Lindstrom holding width on that right. But off the ball, it's a back 5. Lindstrom tucks into that right wing-back spot. O'Brien partners Tarkowski and Branthwaite, as it differs between a bit of a 5-3-2/5-2-3 when pressing. This is a really impressive system set up by Moyes because it accommodates to everyone's qualities very nicely. Ndiaye gets to play higher up and has a lot more attacking influence, because under Dyche he used Ndiaye practically as a wing back out of possession, whilst keeping Harrison higher up. For me, that was the wrong way around. In my Illiman and Ndiaye video, I actually suggested that Dyche needed to push Mykolenko up to move Ndiaye into the space. He's their best player and needs to be utilised in his best position. O'Brien, Branthwaite and Tarkowski as a back 3 is perfect. Branthwaite is fantastic on that left side, pushing wider and having more freedom to carry it forward down his favoured side. You can also create triangles with Ndiaye and Mykolenko, and even sometimes Gay as well can get involved. As does O'Brien. He has the physical capacities, strength, mobility and ability on the ball to fulfil that role perfectly. And Tarkowski, in the middle of the back 3, has more protection in transition and can be a real leader in a strong back line. Lindstrom's hard-working role is definitely more selfless for the rest of the team, but it allows him to push up still and arrive late marked. So in summary, it's a bit of a 3-4-2-1 with Decore and Ndiaye as those 2 interior forwards and Calvert-Lewin up top. Defensively, they are still very tricky, compact, resilient, solid. With the 5-back structure, it means Branthwaite and Tarkowski can be more aggressive with more protection. One of them can step out aggressively when a forward player receives the ball and win the ball back. Of course, when a player does this, you do run the risk of being exploited, such as dragging one of them out of the defence, and that's what Spurs tried to do at times with Jarrad Branthwaite. But as you can see, one of Gay or Mangala are there to cover, track the player movements and stay alert. When pushed super deep, like they were versus Brighton in the second half, it becomes more of a 5-4-1 shape. I'll touch on those defensive performances later when I go through their performance against Brighton. But attackingly, Moyes has made them a threat again. They attack fast, move the ball round quickly. They look to hit the opposition on the break whenever possible and still have that pinch of directness around them, but more controlled and not so one-dimensional. They can play out, use the midfield for quick passing combinations as they overload it. Mangala, Gade, Kore and Dye, Calvert-Lewin, that's a lot of numbers. It's a complete overload of numbers. They can hit it long to Calvert-Lewin or Beto, letting Decore and Dye feed right off them, but they sometimes use Dye dropping in deep as a way forward, as we all know, he can beat multiple players and create space for his teammates, and also himself. Against Spurs, Ange's team came into the game with a new system that, as we know, didn't work, so Everton were there to exploit this. There were structural issues and some of the roles in that team were super demanding of his players, a real mess for Ange all round. The left flank works well. Most teams in the Premier League push the left back right up and use the left hand side player to drag the opposition fullback away, giving more space to the left back. Newcastle do this, Bournemouth do this with the rotation of players, and Everton did it too. Porro was distracted by Ndiaye a lot. He wasn't really filled in on where to be. Sometimes he was tracking Mykolenko out wide, scared of leaving that gap between him and the centre-back. Then sometimes he was looking at Ndiaye. Ndiaye had a huge impact on the game overall. Spurs couldn't handle him dropping deep as he baited players into him. For his goal, he takes Archie Gray out of the back line before ruining Dragerson with the amount of time and space he has. The direct balls from the centre-backs and Pickford worked very well towards Calvert-Lewin and Decore as they found a lot of space in behind in transition, causing chaos for Spurs whenever they moved the ball fast. With the ball, Spurs struggled to do that much. As I said, Mangala and Gate were everywhere and were superb. When they tried to move the ball out wide, the defensive wide player in Lindstrom or Mykolenko would push up. Here you can see Spence having no chance to go forward. A lot of teams down the bottom like to force the opposition out wide and eliminate any central progression, but Everton do both fairly nicely. They have a good counter to limiting the wide threat really nicely. The physicality and legs of the team make the Toffees a very tricky side to break down. Moving on to Brighton, who came off the back of a 3-1 win at Old Trafford. Confidence is high. They set up the same, but O'Brien played a little bit wider, which pushed Lindstrom further up. A slight tweak, I felt, from David Moyes. Everton continued in their well-organised feel, as Brighton managed just 4 shots, 0.16 xG and no shots on target in the first 45. And a possession that Everton's central group, if you like, didn't give one of Brighton's best players in Carlos Baleba much of a sniff at all, surrounding him and not giving him any time to carry or pass it forwards. Gay was my man of the match in this game. He was an engine for 90 minutes. Even at the age of 35, he looks fantastic. He brought energy to that midfield and dropped back a lot, picking up space to make himself a free passing option so he could take it forwards. Everton counter-attacks very nicely in the first 45. Quick passing combos saw them break free a bit, but the direct balls to the striker was still there. The goal they scored was quite a bit of fortune to win the penalty, but they still created the opportunity and still limited Brighton to just scraps when going forward. What I liked too was the turnover down the flank. Nobody was really isolated. Lindstrom, when the ball was back, he had Decore and O'Brien and even Mangala as outlets to pass forward to. But Brighton in the second half had to step it up. 84% possession, 12 shots, but still only 1 shot on target, 0.56 xG, which isn't a big amount at all. They dominated because they needed to. They needed to play more urgently, fast, risky, and Everton could consume their pressure. Some of their build-up in the second half was a little reliant on Ndiaye taking it forwards, but Moyes has been in charge for 3 games. I think with more materials, he can be more dangerous in these games on the break. Defensively, they were so difficult for Brighton to break down. Many times, Brighton players had their foot on the ball, looking for a way, but there wasn't. The shots got more urgent and desperate as they were going up against a very resilient defensive unit. Everton completely suffocated João Pedro and Jorginho Rutter, with numerous players giving them no chance to show off their quick passing combos in the middle, which, as we all know, they are great at. But to conclude, I think Everton can push away from the relegation fight under Moyes this season and even finish as high as 14th to 15th place. A gap is emerging from 16th to 17th place, and it'll be even bigger if Everton win against Leicester on Saturday. 9 points bigger to be exact. But Moyes will establish Everton, but potentially do something that Dyche couldn't. Push Everton that extra further forward in the table, steadily year by year. Granted, he gets the time and support via the ownership and club. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. What do you think of Everton's progress under David Moyes? Where do you think Everton will finish by the end of the season? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.